You ready to do this, Steve?
Let's do it, Spence. Punch it, Chewie.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, my co-pilot, as always, Steve Madura.
Hey, yo.
We're two best friends that, despite being fathers and husbands, we just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode number 27. We release every Thursday morning on iTunes and Google Music, and now on Stitcher, I am proud to say, Steve.
I am also proud to say, Spence, as
well.
I
said it first, man. I'm proud. You can't be proud.
Now, for the listening audience, I just want to say, and it probably won't make it maybe on the end of the episode, but Spencer did go about 5 minutes into the podcast with a Kermit the Frog voice that was actually fairly good, much better than your Australian accent, I've got to say.
I must say. Now, if I could find a way to mesh the two together, it would be just absolutely horrible.
Why don't you try that for us right now?
I think I'll take a pass.
Yes, maybe well,
better Steve, it's good to be back with you. It's been it's been a long week, and then of course it's been a long weekend with Memorial Day. How was your vacation?
It was great.
How was your holiday?
It was really good, actually. It was. I actually extended it today. I called in to the office and said, "I'm not coming in today." Just kind of took a personal day and spent some time with my littlest one, Lila Grace, and just took her to the park and pushed her on the swings and just took her to Dunkin' Donuts to get a donut because she's always asking. I don't know what her fetish is with donuts, but like every time we have a Dunkin' Donuts that's like a block from our house, every time we pass, she's like, "Can we go to Dunkin' Donuts?" I'm like, "No."
She's bought into the marketing. She's like, "Daddy, America runs on Dunkin'."
I'm like, "You tell that Rachel Ray to shut her trap." Yeah. So anyway, so I did that today, which was just nice. It was nice to take a personal day and just, my other daughter, Alana, had a parents readathon type thing where the parents can go to school and have lunch and then review a book. They read some Mouse on the Motorcycle book by Helen McGreedy, or I don't know. Anyway, so my
Harley
wife,
Davidson,
that's right, texted me like half an hour into the presentation, was like, "Hey, you're supposed to be at school right now with Alana. She's going to be crushed if you don't get there." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So I barge into school, jump up on the stage. All the parents are like, "Huh?" I'm like sweating. "Sorry, I'm late." Anyway, but it worked out okay, and she was happy that I was there. So, but rewinding though, Memorial Day was great. We actually have a tradition in our family where we watch the PBS Memorial Day special. Have you ever watched that, Spence?
I can't say that I have, but I mean, at least in my recollection, I am getting older, so I could forget.
Yeah, no. It's one that they do on the steps of the Capitol building, and it's hosted by Joe Mantegna and Gary Sinise. And for those, Gary Sinise is a great actor, but he is heavily involved in veterans affairs and just doing a lot of fundraisers and SOS type things, and not SOS, but USO. There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway,
a little different.
Anyway, so we watched every year, and what they do is they actually take actors and actresses to retell stories from veterans' lives, and whether it's veterans that have died or veterans that have had horrific experiences happen to them, and they basically retell through letters and whatnot, and it is like turn the faucet on, man. I'm weeping openly, and it's like, "Daddy, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yes, Daddy's fine." And then they have music as well, so they'll have they had some guy from Five for Fighting come and sing a song, and some country star who I don't know who he was, and it's just an awesome program. Colin Powell always speaks, and Lawrence Fishburne had to step in this year for Gary Sinise, but it's just an awesome concert and really kind of puts you in the mood for the holiday.
That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, you check it out. Anybody who can. I mean, it's PBS, and they do it every year, and it's become a really cool tradition, and our kids really, really enjoy it. But they told one actually of this guy who was 101 years old, and they interviewed him, and he was part of the Doolittle Raiders, which basically they bombed Japan. Yeah, after Pearl Harbor. And it was cool because they were basically like General Doolittle was like, okay, guys, we're not coming back. We're taking all the radio equipment, any guns that we have, because they were basically flying bombers off of an aircraft carrier, which had never been done before.
So, Steve, if you recall, back to the movie starring Ben Affleck, Pearl Harbor.
Good golly.
They actually, like the second half of that movie, actually focused on the Doolittle Raiders and taking off those bombers off of the carrier.
That's right. And didn't Ben Affleck and what's his name, Josh
Hartnett,
didn't they actually go on those raids?
Yeah, they did. And Alec Baldwin was played James Doolittle.
That's right. Oh my gosh.
Which is cool that you brought that up because like I just was listening to a podcast that was talking about the history of aviation, and they were talking about Jimmy Doolittle, James Doolittle, and his Raiders, and how basically that was like a symbolic stab into the heart of Japan, like, hey, we're going to hit you back, blah, 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 even though we knew we couldn't come back. And like he taught them like how to like speak only a few phrases in Chinese. Yeah, really cool. So I'm glad that they were kind of talking about that and going through it.
Well, it was really cool. So this guy was like the second in command with James Doolittle. He was like the co-pilot of that first plane because General Doolittle was on that first plane. So they basically, they hit their targets. And then they flew like another 800 miles into deep China, and they basically like crashed their planes. They parachuted out because they only had enough fuel to get there, and then they were and so this guy gets caught in a tree, and he cuts his parachute, and he like basically has to like run through the night and finds this shack, and he's like hungry and hurt and whatever else, and he like staggers into this shack, and who does he find in there? General Doolittle waiting for him. It's just it's an amazing story. So,
wow.
It was. So check it out if you can. I'm sure you can find it on the internet. But yeah, PBS Memorial Day special. Awesome stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, how was your Memorial Day holiday?
Well, my Memorial Day was really good. Every year, my motorcycle club puts on a charity ride called the Fallen Patriot Ride.
Oh, right.
And what we basically do is we raise money through the cost of the ride. So it's like $25 for a single rider and an additional $10 if you have a passenger. And then you go on this ride. And so we raise money for charity for the Warriors for Freedom Foundation. And partway through the ride, all the bikers, they make a stop at the Veterans Memorial Cemetery. And we're actually riding each year in honor of a soldier that has given his or her life in defense of our country. And so we got to honor Corporal Adam Galvez this year, and his father spoke, and it was really touching, and some other Gold Star families spoke, and then each rider got to take an American flag and go and actually place it on the grave of a soldier that had given his or her life for the country. And it's a beautiful, touching moment. We've got a person that plays bagpipes while this is going on, and then the ride continues. I didn't get to go on the ride this year because I'm kind of the master of ceremonies at the end location, and we do an auction and a raffle, and we auction off things like JetBlue tickets anywhere they fly, and gun range passes, and go-kart passes, and oil changes, and watches, and a lawnmower, and just a lot of different things. We get all these things donated to us, so we don't spend any money. Every single dime we earn goes to Warriors for Freedom, and they help treat the soldiers, the fighting men and women who have come back with like PTSD, or they've lost limbs or something like that, right? And so I was doing the auction, and I gotta say, Steve, I took a little bit of your advice, and I went more with the humor instead of like the come on, give, it's charity, come on,
you
like
cheap sons of.
Yeah, right. I didn't want to like badger people into it, but I'll tell you, I had a lot of fun because I did this little bit that you kind of mentioned to me, where at the beginning I say, hey, everyone, raise your hands. Okay, your hands are up. I'm going to do the rest. Now, if I see you swatting at a fly or scratching your nose, I'm going to take that as a bit, and I'm dead serious about it. And so everyone laughed, right? And then during the event, Like if I'm going to the auction, I'm like, okay, I've got a 350, do I hear 4? If someone in the back like scratched his nose, I would just stop and look right at him, and I wouldn't say anything, and I'd go, sir, was that a legitimate bid? And like everyone would turn and look at that like one guy, and he'd like realize that we were looking at him and goes, no. And I was like, don't let it happen again. And so everyone starts laughing. And I did this like 6 different times to different people. There was like a ring that was like this dragon ring, and I was like, yeah, it's a dragon ring and it's size 10. And I'm like, listen, if you love Game of Thrones and you are a true Targaryen, then you must bid on this. And some guy starts laughing. He's like, sure, I'll bid on it. And I was like, we got bids, and we did pretty well. I mean, we don't know the total numbers, but it's looking like we probably raised more money this year than we did last year. And really, that's always what it's about. It's trying to grow the ride and grow the event so that we can continue to give more than we gave the year before. Because we really, as a motorcycle club and as individuals, believe in this cause greatly. I did, however, this is really cool, I got to hang out with one of our super friends most of the day on Saturday.
Really? Which friend might that be?
So he's a new super friend to the podcast, but Caleb Albers, the son of my motorcycle club brother Sparrow, he was there, and let me tell you, like Sparrow's like raised his boys right. Like they just jump in and they were helping out, and Caleb was there, and just like, I needed to have my truck brought around to the front so we could load it up. And he was like, hey, I'll take your keys and I'll go get it. And like he just ran around and he helped out and he got out and he got things, and he just took care of a lot of things. And anyway, really good kid. I mean, I've known him for a few years. I've known him for like 5 years now. But it was a lot of fun hanging out with him. We did talk movies. He's seen Split, and I haven't seen Split yet, and so we were kind of talking about that, but kind of not getting into it. And he did have a message for Peter Christensen. He wants to say, Peter Christensen, he's coming for you, and it was an open challenge. He says, "I'm coming for Peter Christensen."
Ooh.
So I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm thinking cage match.
I was just thinking an email, but yeah, whatever, that's fine. Okay.
Sure. Anyway, so that was the Saturday before Memorial Day. And then we played with the kids. We just kind of hung out and kept it low key. Yep. We got at the little kid pool, and we were playing in the water and water guns, and we just kept it low key. Just had a lot of fun being a family and being together. So
that's what it's all about. It's funny this weekend as well. I forgot about this, but I took my van down to Naperville, where we used to live. My dad runs a Goodyear down there, and so you got like new tires and whatnot. And I knew this was going to take some time because Saturday, Memorial Day weekend, busy. So I actually took the boys down while my wife took the girls to a party. And I was going to take them out on a bike ride while the van was getting fixed. Well, like 5 minutes into the ride, Dad calls. He's like, "Yeah, you need an alignment and your back brakes are shot." I'm like, "How long do you need?" He's like, "Well, like 3 hours." We ended up riding 12 miles. We kept going. Addison, my middle son, he's like, "My legs hurt, Daddy." I'm like, "Well, your back just hurt because you just pulled lawn duty. Anybody else's fingers hurt? Anybody else's legs hurt? No, I didn't think so." So we just kept riding. They're like, "When do we go home?" So I found this thing because I take my kids on a lot of like hikes and a lot of bikes and whatnot, or bike rides, is to utilize the gift of my storytelling. So I'm like, "Do you guys want to hear a story?" And then like suddenly like it'll be like half an hour later, and we'll arrive at our destination, and there will be no more complaining. So I just weave a tale.
Very well done. I like that.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to tell you, my hopes got really, really high this morning. I was so sky high. So Facebook, old friend from high school, Jill Mavius McCormick,
oh nice,
messaged me, and she says, "Hey, I just saw an article that says Star Wars Episode 9 is going to be filming in your like location in your area. You should go check this out."
What?
So of course I pull up the article and I read it, and it's like the director's like, "Yeah, this is, it's a really good area. There's lots of, places to film and this and that. Lots of good people that could be extras. So we're going to be looking for a few hundred extras." And I was like, yes, I'm going to go check this out. My life goal will be fulfilled if I'm in a Star Wars movie, even if it's only for a half a second and all you can see is my left elbow. That'll be me. I'm there.
You could be the blue guy in the cantina, like dun, 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 on the piano.
What, man? Whatever. I'll do
You
whatever.
play chopsticks.
Well, let me tell you. Then I took a closer look at the actual website, and it's a satirical news site that just tries to make like these fun stories so like people get excited and have a good time. And I was like, no. I gave it the old Darth Vader Revenge of the Sith.
Nice.
Anyway, I was so let down, and then I saw that and I was like, yeah, it's fake news. I'm like, dang it.
Now, did Jill know that it was
No.
fake news?
No.
She was like
Jill
trying to like give you a jab.
Oh
Like,
no, she felt so bad. I was like, "Hey, don't worry about it." I was like, "Listen, I'm like, you thought of me. You knew that like I live in this area. You knew that like that
I got
is
a Star
something
Trek
I'm
pizza
super-"
cutter.
Right. She knows me. She just knows like Star Wars it is my soul, right? And so I really did message her. I said, "Thank you so much for thinking about me. I really appreciate it. That was awesome. Even though it didn't turn out to be true, I really do appreciate that you thought of me first and wanted to make sure that I saw that." So big shout out to her. Even though it wasn't true, I was so glad that she sent that. It was so nice. But
Well, you know what's been interesting though, and shout out to Jill. Love Jill Mavius / McCormick to death, or hyphen. I don't know what it is, but Utah has actually become kind of a hotbed of kind of like a Hollywood, the Hollywood in the mountains. It's basically like there have been just tons of, probably in the last decade and a half, like tons of movies are filmed in Utah. It's crazy.
Yep.
You get like there's just like tons of westerns, and they use it. Just there's such a variety of like landscape. You go south and into the St. George area, the Zion, the Bryce Canyon. You get like the crazy red rock. You've got more of the craggy mountain look when you get into the Wasatch Front. It's
So are you a location scout on the side?
I actually am not. But there was a guy that I knew that was a location scout for Christopher Nolan. When he was looking for the first Batman, and he had to go around and look for apartments in Chicago to film different parts of the movie. And actually, this is kind of funny. So funny story. So he actually had his van filled up with a bunch of equipment, and Christopher Nolan and a few other of the assistants or whatever were going to. They were going to lunch or whatever, and Christopher Nolan's like, "Just park your van here." He's like, "Well, I don't think I can." There's like a sign that "Just park it here; it'll be fine." So they go in and they're eating, and they have this big picture window overlooking the parking lot, and there's this big truck that pulls in, and the truck pulls away, and when the truck pulls away, his van is getting towed. He's like, "My van!" So he has to go out and run after it. He has to pay this guy like $1,000 on the spot, so he doesn't take his van because it has all the equipment in it. And he goes back and he tells the whole story, thinking like Christopher Nolan will be like, "Oh yeah, sorry about that. Here you go." And Christopher Nolan's like, "That sucks."
Wow.
That's it. Just like stuck him with a bill.
Well, interesting. I personally, I would have let him out, and then I would like parked around the corner and met him for lunch. But anyway, that's just me. So anyway, I had a real good week. We're almost done with the first season of Arrow, and that's been pretty good so far. Like I've really enjoyed Arrow, so probably finish that season this week and then move on to the second. But and also like I don't know why, but for some reason Inception has been on my brain, and I really want to go back and watch that movie again. Like it's been too long, I feel. Anyway, little side note, not that it really matters, but anyway.
It's a good show.
Well, Steve, what do you say? Is it time to do the thing?
With the stuff?
Yeah, with the stuff and the thing down there by the river.
What?
In a van by the river?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, Steve, let's do it. Let's get into the Rebel Intelligence.
All right.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Steve, so Rebel Intelligence is here. Let's kick this off. I'm going to start because this was kind of big this week. Star Wars turned 40 this year. Yeah, so May 27th, May 27th, May 25th, 1977 was the theatrical release of Star Wars, which later became Star Wars A New Hope. It was retitled a little later on. But Star Wars, turned 40 this week. I know for a lot of us that are kind of right around the age of 40, like this has been our whole life, right? I mean, this has been with us forever. Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, Darth Vader, all the rest. As it turns 40, I had a second to kind of like look back and kind of pause and think about like how much like it's really been in my life. And it's really embedded in my life, I must say. Like I've seen the movies countless times, read the books, owned toys and Legos and comic books and, coloring books and pretty much everything that George Lucas, schlocked out to us in our childhood. But anyway, it was nice reflecting on it and thinking like my boys are, 3 and 4 right now. And Star Wars has got, movies planned out for like the next, probably 6-7 years. Like this isn't going anywhere. Like it really is here to stay.
Well, and to think about, 40 years, I can't recall a time in my life when there hasn't been some aspect of Star Wars, right? When the movies weren't, in the box office, obviously, there was the books, there was cartoons. I was just putting away, like I was just kind of cleaning up our basement tonight and just putting some things away from some, playing that happened today. And there are literally some original Star Wars characters that are among my kids' collection, right? I think I talked about it before, but when my mom, kind of cleaned out some of the storage unit with all of my old crap, there was like an old Millennium Falcon and a bunch of old, like there was a Darth Vader carrying case and all these things. Like,
did you find the Notre Dame halter top?
I'm wearing it right now. No. Did you find the cowboy boots?
No.
All right, there you go. But
I think I got rid of those cowboy boots though years and years ago. Just saying.
Probably right after the show. But it really has been a part of just kind of pop culture, and you wonder like how much unknowingly it is shaped. So much. I mean, from movies to other things. How many space movies it has inspired. In some way, shape, or
how
form.
well would you say your kids know Star Wars already?
They don't know it that well, but I think they will be getting to know it, in the coming years better. So,
like my kids are still a little young, but like they've seen the cartoon Star Wars Rebels, and so they're familiar with some of that, and they've actually watched the entire trilogy now with me at least once through. Mm-hmm. But they lose interest at times. I mean, there's some parts where the dialogue gets a little heavy and they're trying to explain things, and the kids are like, okay, Daddy, I want chocolate milk, whatever.
That's the lowest common denominator.
I want fruit snacks and chocolate milk. So, so they've seen it, but I do notice that like they're becoming aware of it. It's like if they see a picture of Darth Vader, they're like, "Oh, Daddy, that's Darth Vader. He's a bad guy." And I was like, "You got it. He is a bad guy." I was like, "Now brush your teeth with that Darth Vader toothbrush. You'll be okay." Right.
Well, I think you should post some pictures of the original room that you designed for Charlie. I mean, didn't it have like lightsaber? What was it?
Lightsaber night lights.
Oh, that's what it was. I thought it was like spindles on his like crib or something like that. But yeah, it was fairly well decked out, as I recall.
I can probably find the photo you're referring to.
There were several, but yeah. So I think you've taken great strides to indoctrinate your children early on, as we discussed.
You've got to, man. Anyway,
you got to. Very cool.
Anyway, 40 years old, great milestone.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, which is really sad, actually, but and many of you may have heard this by the time this podcast drops, but Justice League director Zack Snyder has stepped down with his wife, producer Deborah Snyder, with regard to the filming of the new Justice League movie. Now, many people would say, "Oh, this is great." Joss Whedon has agreed to take over filming for the remainder, which is not much. I think most of it's already been done. He has some, remaining film scenes to film, and there's not going to be new characters added or anything else like that. It's just kind of some kind of touch up and finish up. But unfortunately, the reason for kind of the change of directorship is just tragic. It's come to light that his daughter, Zach's daughter, who was 20 years old, her name was Autumn, committed suicide earlier this year. And they wanted to try to keep it quiet for obvious reasons and just kind of keep it a private family matter. But instead of having the internet guess and have all these other versions, he said, I'm just gonna kind of come out with it, which is, as we talked about last week with the suicide of Chris Cornell. It's just a tragic thing, and obviously, when anyone loses a child, it's tragic. One thing, however, that I thought was interesting about this, as I read the article, there was 434 comments given about this, and instead of shellacking him with regard to any previous products he's put out of the way of films, they were all very touching comments and very heartfelt, and people sharing about losses that they'd had and with regard to suicide and mental health issues and depression. And it kind of restored my faith, in the internet. Sometimes comment threads can get really vicious and
toxic, very toxic,
just bad. But humanity is alive and well, and it's so it was really sweet to kind of read through some of those and see that people were very very kind and very thoughtful, and so that's a little something.
I saw that too, Steve. Yeah, it is tragic. Like, it's horrible. When I first saw I think the headline, it was like, Joss Whedon takes over for Zack Snyder, and like my first instinct, I was like, oh, yes, I'm excited, because I know Joss Whedon's track record. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Firefly, the Avengers, the 2 Avengers movies.
Absolutely.
He's really, really great at writing dialogue for ensemble casts. And I know he's going to be doing some reshoots and, rewriting some scenes. But then I read a little bit more and I found out the reason why. And like immediately my excitement for Joss taking over was like just gone. Like, I just felt bad for Zack Snyder, despite, what I think of some of his choices as a filmmaker, that's, it's inconsequential. As a father, like, my heart just goes out to him and his wife and what they're going through. It's just tragic, just so sad. But at least they, were trying to do what they felt was right, trying to finish kind of the majority of what they're going to do, and now they're going to take a step back. And if you're going to have anyone step in to kind of take over and help finish and get your vision across the finish line, Joss Whedon is your man. I mean, through and through.
And they're going to do, take great steps to kind of encapsulate Zach's vision to finish it out. He's not going to try to revamp things, so it will still have, I think, the look and the feel. Even though Whedon and Snyder's writing and filmmaking styles are extremely different,
right?
They're very committed to keeping his vision intact for the Justice League. But what's interesting is it does raise questions about Justice League 2. So Justice League 1 is due out November 17th, I believe, is the drop date. But again, to follow, and it's already in the works, is Justice League 2, and to see who's going to take the helm of that. So
yeah.
Being that Whedon's already taken the solo project of Batgirl, he's already kind of in the DC world. So,
yeah, man. I mean, gosh, the guy does Marvel. He's switching over and doing DC. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he directs some sort of Star Wars project at some point, and then goes on to do like an Indiana Jones, and then Star Trek, and a Back to the Future remake, and
Gilmore Girls. Sorry. I had to throw it out there.
Day in the life, Steve. A day in the life. Anyway, moving on. So this is a little interesting thing. Of course, Breda's love of Disneyland.
Oh, yes.
At Disney's California Adventure over this last weekend, they opened up the revamped Tower of Terror, which is now the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout ride. And I'm going to I don't know how to put this to like lessen the blow. The wait time for this, wait for it, 7 hours.
What?
7 hours. Now, I get maybe waiting for a ride an hour and a half, 2 hours at the most. But could you imagine waiting in line with your 4 kids for 7 hours?
No, I wouldn't wait for my kid to be born 7 hours. I'm like, sweetheart, just call me when you're done. Like,
Right.
to wait for a freaking ride?
So now here's the really cool thing about this. That sounds like chaos. Apparently the line was so long, like it basically like went through like the entire park down Buena Vista Street, but everyone was staying in a nice organized line. People were all friendly and having a good time, and people were snapping photos. And they said that even the Fast Pass, where you can go in early, scan your ticket, and then get a pass to return at a predetermined time to help speed you through, that line was still like 5 hours long. It was that popular and that big on its opening weekend. 7 hours, though.
No way. No way.
So here's the cool thing about this ride, though, right? I mean, it's Tower of Terror, so it's revamped with the Guardians of the Galaxy, spin and feel to it. So the cool thing is, though, from what I read, is that when you get inside of like the main lobby of the ride, they're going to have all these sort of glass cases with stuff like, so it looks like the Collector from the first Guardian of the Galaxy movie. And they're going to be able to swap in and out over time the things that are in the cases, so that it'll never entirely look the same at any one given point. So like they can continue to kind of give it like a little mini facelift every few weeks, every month, every few months, whatever. And I think that's going to keep people coming back, because some of these bigger rides, like, let's be honest, it's a ride. You go up, you go down, or you do a loop-de-loop, or whatever it is, some of these rides. But like, you go into like the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, the ambiance in that place, at Universal Studios is just phenomenal. You go there for that. You don't go over there for the one ride. You go there to get a butterbeer. You go there to buy a wand. You go there to
get really like in
character, to be part of it.
Encompassed, right?
Yeah. So that's why you're going to go and, wait 7 hours. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest. Would I do that with my boys? No way. Now, if it was me and Brita and the boys were somewhere, I mean, on opening weekend, to say that I rode it opening weekend, that's a tough one. As an adult, I could do that because I could do other stuff. I could have my Nintendo Switch and I could be playing NBA Playgrounds on it, which is...
But 7 hours!
I'm just saying, yeah. Here's the thing. You wait 6 months, the line's going to be down at least to 3 or 4 hours. So you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Not with kids, though. Like, if I was taking kids through, man, I would probably plan a visit in a year or two when you're going to get back to kind of normal ride lines. Yeah. But anyway, I thought some people out there may be interested, because we know that they're kind of prepping, and what it looks like could happen is that this could be kind of the gateway into opening up kind of a Marvel area that they may expand and put more Marvel stuff in there. So if this ride stays popular and stays big, could mean, big business for the for Disney parks to come, because you got Star Wars Land going in. If you got a Marvel Land going in, I'm just saying.
Harry Potter. It's cool that they're really trying to go for the experience, though, not just like you said, not just a themed ride, but an actual experience, which is cool.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, they're definitely taking after the Warner Brothers Harry Potter at Universal feel and trying to figure a way to do that at Disney. So
yeah.
Anyway,
so. One last thing that I wanted to round out our discussion with was pretty cool, actually, I thought. So speaking of Arrow, I'm glad you're liking the show. Stephen Amell, better known as Green Arrow from the show, proved that he is not just a cosplaying a powerful vigilante. He frickin' went on on American Ninja Warrior and kicked trash. It was a celebrity edition for NBC's Red Nose Day. And so it was all just to raise money for charity. There were a bunch of other, celebrities that participated, Derek Huff and some others. So he went and did the entire first course. And after that, he's like, you know what? I'd like to do one more, because I just can. So he went and did the salmon ladder. He ended with the salmon ladder, which is in the intro of the show. And he friggin' went all the way up and then kind of ended with a big splash in the pool. But people were just going crazy. And like, this guy is the real deal. He is ripped head to toe. And they actually, on this article, they actually have a guide to his fitness routine. And I looked at it. Holy crap. It looks tough. We'll just say it looks tough.
You think you could follow that routine, Steve?
I could probably do 5 minutes of it.
Is that the 5 minutes where you're warming up?
Exactly. 5 minutes where you like get a drink, towel off. It's the end. Actually, no. I actually signed up to do a Tin Man, which is like a mini Ironman this weekend. So it's a 300-meter swim, a 6-mile bike ride, and a 3-mile run. So I will see if, and I haven't trained for it at all. So we'll see what happens.
You talked about signing up for an Ironman. I was like, so you're getting fitted for a suit with repulsor lifts in the feet and the hands? How does that work?
Right.
Where can I get signed up for that?
Now, the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, oil can. Oil can.
We're off to see the wonderful Wizard of Oz. Yeah,
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
It's about the extent of the Iron Man suit that I'd be wearing. So,
okay.
Anyway, so check it out, though. It's pretty amazing to see him just like breathe. It looks like he breezes through it and does not look easy. So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah. How do you think you would do? Let me ask. How do you think you would do it? Like, let's say American Ninja Warrior or American Gladiator, like any of those. You think
like now or like in my prime?
Now? What do you think?
Yeah, I would probably run up towards the first event, the first thing. I would probably trip, fall, roll, and then slowly like fall and splash into the water, where then I would need to be helped out by paramedics. Yeah, I wouldn't do great.
I think you do really good at the jousting, though. You could, I think you got long arms. Remember the old school jousting where they had to be on those pedestals for American Gladiator?
Yeah, I remember that. I always wanted to do assault. The little course where they had the big cannon tennis ball gun, they'd shoot at you and you like run from thing to thing and you try to hit the little target above them.
Dive rolls. You always good at the dive roll.
That is true. Now, if I was doing this in my youth, in my prime, if you will, I think I still would have a real hard time. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do American Ninja Warrior. Those guys are nuts. But on American Gladiator, I would have done the joust. I always wanted to do, gosh, what was it called? Breakaway? There was like the little one where like you were...
Oh, yeah, do like Jersey Juke, kind of like football moves and try to get the ball in the...
There was two of them. There was like you would have like, you'd be like in the little wrestling circle and then you try to like break away from the guy and then you'd like pick up the football and then you try to run like 20, 30 yards and juke him and then like score it in the thing.
Yep.
And I always thought I could do that just because like you watch the people who scored at will and they basically just got the American Gladiators to a point where the gladiator had to commit one way or another.
Right.
And if you could get him to commit the wrong way to the other guy, then you were free to just like score at will. Or the big things where you're in the balls and you roll them around and you got to get them to set off the little
I forgot
sensors.
about those. The hamster balls?
Yeah, like gyroscope they called it.
Those things looked heavy though. As you look at them, like those aren't moving as quick as you'd think they would. Like
not
0
at
to
first.
60 on those things.
Yeah, not at first, but once they get going, woo!
Oh yeah,
look out.
They probably weighed a few 100 pounds.
You always watch like when someone's on the inside and they'd like get knocked or hit like and they'd lose their footing, then they'd start like rolling around on the inside. That's right. Like they're in a dryer getting tumbled.
So I'd probably like go to like some like sign up for one of those things, but then I would be like recruited for like the one that has like the wall with the punching the punching boxing gloves that like punch out at you, you know?
Oh yeah.
Or the knockout. What was that stupid game show? It was like a Japanese game show. It's like you try to walk along this wall that has like a half a foot ledge, and then like these boxing gloves come out and hit you in the nuts and hit you in the face and stuff. That's what I would probably end up doing.
I always liked the in college watching the was it extreme elimination, the most extreme elimination challenge, where it's that Japanese game show I think called Tadashi's House, where they took like.
Right.
They took like American comedians who like redubbed over it and like they do the little voices and like I'm going to win and then they'd go and do whatever. I love that show.
So Carrie and I, when we were first married, we were living out in California and we got a TV. We plugged it in for the first time. We hadn't had TV for like a month. Plug it in and that show is on, or maybe some show like unto it. And like the obstacles that they had were like brutal. Like they weren't just like,
Yeah,
oh, this is fun. You fall into a pit. Like there's like this guy that there's this one obstacle I remember. And they're trying to run up this mountain, and these huge like balls are like rolling down like boulders, and they're obviously not made of rock, but they were like hitting these guys and like pummeling them. I mean, just brutally pummeling them. And then there was this other really weird one where they had to like sled down this hill in like a teacup. It was like this oversized teacup.
Yeah.
And it was just like this weird, like muddy hill. It wasn't like sterile and like a set. This was just some muddy hill, and they would fall out and they would get just, oh my gosh, it looked painful.
I'm telling you, those Japanese, they know how to do a game show. I'm just telling you.
Man. Yeah, sign this waiver. It's 72 pages long. Sign the waiver.
Yeah.
Love it.
Anyway, so Steve, that's all I got for Rebel Intelligence. Are you you done?
I'm done.
Like 20 minutes ago, maybe?
Yeah, I'm done. Right.
All right. Well, let's get to the question of the week. Last week, we had a kind of a conversation. We kind of talked about some of the things that kind of make us who we are. We were kind of celebrating our 6-month anniversary of the podcast. And we asked a question, and the question basically was like, tell us something about yourself. Maybe a story, something funny that maybe defines you, or something that'll make us laugh. And let's jump over to the email with our good friend, Peter Christensen.
Let's do it.
He says, Dear nerds, I can't believe you didn't gross out at the implications of my suggestion that Luke was Kylo Ren's father. Think about it. We got it. Peter, we just didn't want to hang around and talk about it too much. This is a family show, you know.
Hanging around the toilet.
He says, for the Fortress of Nerditude website, you should consider using Squarespace, unless Spencer specifically wants to experience using WordPress. Squarespace sites look great, are easy to use, many podcasts use it to host, including a web audio player, and all the administration work is taken care of. Yes, 200,000 Squarespace ads I've heard on other podcasts have brainwashed me. Which is funny because I was thinking about that. I was like, that is true. I do hear that ad a lot on podcasts. Anyway, his story. He says, here's a super friend story about me. When I was a sophomore in college, I shaved a Y in my head for a BYU football game, and I got on the stadium jumbotron. I shaved it off afterwards, so I figured my mom wouldn't find out. But one of her friends was at the game and saw it. Busted. Thanks for another great episode.
Nice.
Cheers, Peter. You know, it's true, like, back in the day, you could do stuff, and if you got on the jumbotron, someone saw it, yeah, you were busted. But, like, now, with cell phones, you can't get away with stuff as easy.
Oh, my gosh. Many politicians have fallen because they thought they could get away with it.
Right. Going over to Facebook, the other one we have this week, our new super friend, Caleb Albers. He says, when we were younger, my brother and I were riding our bikes and crashed into our youngest brother completely on accident. Needless to say, he started crying. So to keep him from telling on us, we tackled him to the ground and hog-tied him until we could calm him down. We still got in trouble because we forgot to cover up his injuries when we let him inside. Even today, I try all I can not to get myself in trouble, even if it's an awful idea. I love that. Like, I know those brothers. Like, I know them all, and I totally can see that happening. And it just makes me feel good to know, like, I wasn't alone in doing dumb stuff as a kid and, like, trying to cover it up and hide it and not get in trouble. I'm glad that other people out there have done the same.
I love their hog tying the victim, throw him in a closet, leave him for a day or so.
We're not going to let you go inside until you calm down. Like, oh yeah, by the way, we forgot you've got a cut on your forehead, blood trickled down and is dried to the side of your face. But, you know.
It's for your own good.
Yes. Anyway, we thank you guys so much for your responses. We love the interaction. Every week we're going to continue to ask you a question of the week, and you can always answer that at the Gmail address of fortofnerd@gmail.com, on Twitter @fortofnerd, or facebook.com/fortofnerd, and maybe eventually on a website, maybe by Squarespace or WordPress, or who knows, Hulu, I don't know, YouTube, something.
Hulu.
I got nothing.
Maybe Peter Christensen can just make our website for us, dang it.
Eventually we'll have the website. It is, I've got some more ideas, and we're kind of tightening that down. We've talked about that some, so that should be coming soon. But anyway, appreciate the interaction, guys. Thank you so much for responding. We do love talking with our super friends.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, Spence, we also love, rating, a thumbs up, a 2 thumbs up even. So, head to iTunes and give the old friends at the Fortress of Nerditude a 5-star rating, because if you don't, we'll hog tie you.
And we'll keep you in that closet until you calm down.
That's right.
Steve, so a lot happened obviously this week, with the holiday and everything. But here's something in our realm of the world that really, really feels appropriate to talk about. They released the third and final full trailer for Spider-Man Homecoming, which comes out in just a little over a month on the 7th of July.
That's right.
And they also released the international trailer as well. So I thought we should talk about it. I feel it's we've had a lot of other stuff going on, so we've kind of been holding off a little bit. But I feel it's about time now. We're a little more than a month out, and this movie's going to come up, and we're going to do it for our movie club coming up. Which, speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, our movie club, we're going to be recording it, and it will be coming next week. We had to push it back a little bit with the holiday, and we wanted to make sure everyone was on board and ready. So look for that next week. We're going to do the movie club. And then, obviously, we're going to talk about Spider-Man today in preparation of a future movie club.
Yeah, no, I am looking forward to this movie. The more that I've read about it and the more that I've seen, the trailers look great, and it doesn't just take kind of a glossy look at Spider-Man. I love the weaving of the Avengers and whatnot, and then the dark kind of part that comes later, which we're going to talk about, but. It looks very layered, and it's not just kind of a one-tone movie. So
right, yeah, it definitely feels like there's a lot going on in this movie, at least from a storytelling standpoint. So let's talk about it. I figure let's talk about kind of both the third trailer and the international. We'll just kind of talk about some of the things that stood out to us, some of the things we're seeing, because I feel like we got a lot more details of kind of what this story could be about or directions it could go from these trailers.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into it.
So let's see here. Like at the start of this trailer, let's go over to like the international one. Like Spider-Man is kind of doing, I don't know, what would you call it? Like a video diary, maybe.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. So like he's kind of taking like little videos of himself, and it shows him, kind of doing this. Almost like a video diary, almost like a YouTube channel, although he would be...
In the early days.
Right. It'd be silly to do that. But the funny thing is, like, it shows him, like, in his part in Civil War, where he's like, hey, so I'm over here, and, sorry, he just called me, I gotta go. And then, like, it shows like this, and then, like, it's like, and he's like, man, that was really awesome, I did this, and it's like, oh my gosh, what's that guy? Because Ant-Man, grows and becomes huge. And so, like, it's this thing that we didn't see before, but like he's taking like footage in the middle of this big huge fight.
Well, and as you recall, this is the part where basically like the standoff happens in Civil War, and he's basically just kind of told to like stay to the side, right?
Right. Yeah.
He's kind of like waiting in the wings for his cue from Tony Stark, and so yeah, during this time we kind of get this funny angle of him making, like you said, this video diary. The play-by-play of what's going on.
And I love that Stark calls him Underoos. I just love that. It just makes me laugh so hard.
Right.
So then we see him like still kind of doing this video diary, but he's back in the hotel room and he's like going crazy and he's like jumping around, and you can tell he's like a little sweaty, and he's been doing all this, all this crazy stuff, and he's like super pumped about it. But then we see what's this guy's name? Happy Hogan, the kind of the right-hand man of Tony Stark in the first like 2 Iron Man movies. Right. And so like you kind of get the idea, like, even though we haven't seen him recently, like he's still part of Tony Stark's world. He's still kind of, involved, right? Mm-hmm.
And he basically, you can tell he's like getting reprimanded for being too loud. He's like, they're sharing like, walls of a hotel room, and he's like, shut your mouth, I'm trying to go to sleep.
Do you think that he's kind of maybe the assigned babysitter of Spider-Man during the Civil? Because this obviously took place. Like maybe he's like babysitting him during Civil War, and he like hates that. Like that's the impression I got, and may not totally be, but like it felt like, thematically that would be awesome. Really funny.
That's awesome.
It's kind of like, dang kid.
That's right. You ordered how much in room service? What's this pay-per-view?
Right. So then what do we see? We see like, he's kind of still going on, and he's like talking about like all the things like, hey, I stopped a bike thief today. It was Grand Theft Bicycle, and
Well, yeah. So this is the part where he's basically reporting to Tony on like a daily basis to like what he's doing. When I think Tony has kind of resigned him to being kind of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's like, just lay low, keep your feet in the ground. And so he's kind of recounting what he's done. So he stopped a petty thief stealing a bike. He helped, I think, an old woman find her way.
And she buys him a churro. I love that.
He's like, so that was pretty good. He's like sitting on a train while he's eating his churro.
Which, speaking of that, did you notice like when he's riding that train, like that felt like Spider-Man 2. You remember Tobey Maguire and Spider-Man 2 has that big scene where he's got to like stop the big train from like crashing and derailing. I kind of like that they kind of like a nod to like the fact that sometimes this is how Spider-Man gets around. He just, drops in on the top of the train and just kind of rides it around the city.
Isn't that the scene where he basically has to stop from going off the tracks, and then all of the citizens kind of pick him up after he's kind of passed out? Because
his mask has been ripped off him, and like they like
he's
give it back to him. Yeah.
That's actually a great scene. Like, you got to get by us first, and so they all kind of stand, and of course, with one swipe, Doc Ock just pushes him to the side, but still a good scene.
Yeah, that was a really good scene. I did like that movie quite.
It's almost kind of like 9/11-esque, where it's like, let's roll. Everybody's kind of standing up. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So anyway, just like a little nod to how Spidey gets around this city. And
really just his efforts, his desperate efforts to try to impress Tony Stark.
Right. Now, something I noticed in this trailer, and I think this is the first time I saw it, was the scene where he puts on the suit for the first time, like the big, the suit Tony's given him. And like, there's an AI that talks to him, and like you kind of see like it all kind of like light up, and it's like, you have 576 combinations of spider webs you could use. What really kind of excites me about this is that I don't recall any of the other Spider-Man movies, and I don't recall a lot of the comics ever showing that like the spider suit has an AI. I mean, this like reminds me of like Jarvis inside of the Iron Man suit.
Exactly.
And so this seems like a change for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I'm kind of okay with this change. Like I think it's fine. Like I don't think it's too far out of the ordinary.
Well, I was going to ask you. I was going to say, did this rub you the wrong way? Because I know you're fairly purist, I guess, when it comes to things, being that you wouldn't go to Warp 11 during your little stint. And I was actually, wanted to ask you, does this take away of any of the uniqueness, of any of the artistic whatever of Spider-Man, being that now it's just a programmed, like, I'm 72, and now I want 120, that he's basically shouting out commands as opposed to, freeform?
I don't know that maybe that's the way it's going to happen. Maybe they're just like the computer saying, like, you have this many different combinations, but he can still figure out how to make all the work, not like there's like a pre-programmed. What I am a purist though, and is that this version of Spider-Man, like other versions before and in the comics, he's wearing web shooters that actually shoot out his webbing. I always like it when the webbing comes from like inside of him due to the radioactive bite, because that always gives me the impression of like, you never have to worry about like tech failing. You never have to worry about running out of supplies. Like it's there. So I did like the way that they did the Tobey Maguire version of that as far as the web shooting. Exactly.
Because having a suit that does all this stuff for you, I mean, really anybody could get in the suit, right? I mean, Heavy Metal, what's his name? I'm so bad with names. Sorry, guys.
Heavy Metal.
The Iron Man, the other Iron Man, Heavy.
War Machine.
War Machine, yeah. So like
Heavy Metal.
He's like the guy, he's like Tony's butler or something. He's like, hey man, why don't you hop in the suit? It's like whereas somebody like Superman or, Spider-Man, something that's innate within them, that makes them super, right? Not just a suit.
Right, but I mean, Spider-Man's always had the ability of like, his super reflexes, his Spidey sense, like the ability to climb and to jump.
Sure.
So like that's his real powers. But comics have gone back and forth whether or not he shoots the webbing, from his wrists and that's part of him, or if he does the tech and if he builds it. And I mean, it's fine. Like, I think part of the storytelling is like something like that could get damaged, and then how does he cope and how does he respond when that happens? But for me, I like the natural. I prefer it without the tech to make his webbing shoot, but that's just me.
Well, in this trailer, we hear a conversation between Tony and Peter, and he basically says, "You can't take the suit away. I need." He's basically grounding him from the suit. "You can't take the suit away. I need the suit. I'm nothing without the suit." And Tony says wisely, "If you're nothing without the suit, you don't deserve the suit."
Right.
So I think there's actually going to be some of that, because we see later in the trailer, I'm going to get to that, where he doesn't have the suit and he's got to kind of go on his own merits. So we'll talk about that in a bit.
Right. And the funny thing is, and we've kind of seen this, I think maybe before in one of the other trailers, we definitely see it this time. And it's really funny is that Spider-Man, Peter Parker with his buddy, Ned, like they kind of hack into the suit. And they realize that like there's a ton of protocols, like there's a ton of other things that the suit can do, but it's all locked down because there's a program running called the Training Wheels Protocol that basically like is locking it down. And I love the scene because Peter jumps on the bed. He's like, "Why doesn't he take me seriously as an adult?" And it just kind of shows him almost like throwing like a little mini temper tantrum like a child would.
Yeah, he treats me like a kid. He's like, "You are a kid."
Right. As he's jumping on the bed, he treats me like a kid. So that was really cool. I mean, I did like visually when they did show the AI. I thought that was really cool.
There were some cool things that the suit could do. I mean, there's a scene where he's getting taken up by Michael Keaton, by the villain, and he activates like a parachute that has his emblem on it.
Right, which comes out like the back of his suit, right?
Yeah, we also see later that the emblem on his chest can become a drone, and the spider can kind of fly independent of himself.
Which is freaking cool, right?
Yeah, I thought that was cool too.
We also did see that there is a quick scene where, like, I think it's the scene where he gets picked way up and then he falls and he does the parachute.
Right.
Like he crash lands like in that backyard, and those girls are having like a camp out, and like if you remember in Civil War, like his eyes like they kind of moved and they were like emotive. It's like there was some like sort of like the AI built into the eyes, so like they would darken or they would open up more. Like those were like freaking out and going like on the fritz. Those like eyeballs are just like bugging out, going. Wah, wah,
the girls
wah, wah,
are like at a camp out. Ah!
Yeah, I thought that was really kind of cool because once again, it's kind of showing that the tech, is infallible. It's not perfect, but it is, it is what it is, right?
Well, and I think it's kind of reminiscent of the first Iron Man, where he's still kind of getting used to using the suit, and they add a little humor in there, and I think they're doing the same here. I think they're gonna play a lot to Peter's naivete and his immaturity and whatnot, which I think is part of who that character is, right? He's a superhero, but he's still a kid. Right.
Yeah. So let's switch over and talk a little bit about Vulture. Okay, so this is the bad guy in the movie, Vulture. I really didn't have any kind of clue prior to this last trailer and the international trailer, like how he kind of gets involved or how he's there. But in the international trailer, they show that the Vulture and like his crew are actually like scavengers, like salvage men, and they're like salvaging like the tech from like the Chitauri aliens from like the first Avengers movie, like that they're basically like following like around the Avengers maybe and trying to like salvage like tech that's like left over from like the bad guys or the good guys, and they're like using it to like make weapons.
Right. No, I thought that was interesting as well. And he uses a comment that the world's changing and they've got to change with it. And so, some of the weapons that we see in this trailer are, I think, very different than any we've seen in other Avengers movies, surely. Pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah, like you remember the scene in the trailer, and we've seen it in some of the first trailers where like Spider-Man drops in kind of like into like a kind of like a bank kiosk, and it's like the guys in the masks trying to look like the Avengers. And he's like, "Hey, you guys aren't the Avengers." Hulk gives it away, and then he fights them, and then they show at the very end of that trailer kind of like this big explosion. Looks like the front of the building had been blown off, but in the international trailer, it showed them these bad guys holding some sort of I don't even like a gravity gun, maybe. I don't know if that's the right term, but it was holding Spider-Man in some sort of a field, and he was able to break free. But all of a sudden, we see a little more of that one scene and realize that they're using some sort of alien tech, some sort of crazy tech we've never seen before.
I gotta say, when you say hadn't seen before, I immediately was reminiscent of the guns that the bad guys used in RoboCop 1.
RoboCop. I'm trying to think of the guns.
Do you remember they had these crazy huge like pulse cannons or something like that could blow up. Man, I gotta try that one, and they just start shooting up the whole town.
Well, I mean, we've seen similar effects in other movies, sure, but as far as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we haven't seen anything that kind of looks like this. So, here's a little something. I don't know what this is, but I'm super excited. So in the trailer, we see Spider-Man, and he confronts Donald Glover. Now, Donald Glover's the name of the real actor who was on Community and was also played a character on The Martian, and he's going to be playing the young Lando Calrissian in the upcoming Han Solo movie. I love Donald Glover so much. Here's the cool thing. Donald Glover also is the voice, I believe, of Miles Morales, who's in the cartoon, he's the person that kind of takes over for Spider-Man, is a young black kid, and he takes over the mantle of Spider-Man. So I don't know what Donald Glover's role is in this movie. I don't know if maybe it's just a little cameo because he's the voice of Miles Morales, or if he actually has a bigger role in this film. I have no clue.
They're all about cameos. I mean, Stan Lee. One thing that I think was funny, though, is the line that Donald Glover gives. He's like, "Man, you have got to get better at this portion of the job."
Right, because it shows him
crashing.
Right, he's getting thrown around and crashed into stuff.
Yep.
Yeah,
Donald Glover's great, though.
Oh man, I don't know what it is, but I'm excited to see it. So as the trailer goes on, and Steve, you kind of alluded to earlier, at some point, Peter Parker loses his suit, right? And he's got to go back to kind of his original suit that he had, kind of the red hoodie and the blue sweatpants type of look, right? Some welder's
goggles. Yep.
Right. So we see him in a good part of this trailer in kind of that getup. And there's this big scene where we see this, and we've seen little snippets before where Spider-Man's on a plane and he's trying to use his web shooters to redirect a plane. But we kind of get a little more detail of this. Now, it looks like to me, you correct me if I'm wrong, but that Happy Hogan is responsible for getting a whole bunch of new Avengers weapons or Avengers tech somewhere, and the Vulture and his gang are trying to hijack the plane.
That is what I gather from it. So yeah, I think you're right.
So I think that's what it is. The kind of cool thing about this scene, though, is I get the impression that it's something that's gonna happen maybe midway through the movie. It looks like that could be a big scene that happens towards the end, but I think that scene actually happens some way midway through the movie, maybe in the first 2/3 of the movie, and this is going to be whatever helps Peter Parker turn Tony Stark's head around to the fact that he can be a bigger help than just saving bicycles from being stolen or helping a little old lady. You know what I'm saying? Because at some point I feel, if this movie's going to have an arc of hey, I'm in the suit, I lost the suit, this is Marvel, they're going to have to get back to the suit by the end of it. Don't you feel? I mean, that's kind of what they do.
Now in that scene, though, when he's kind of redirecting that what looks like a B-52 or something, he is not in the Tony Stark suit, correct?
Correct. Yeah, he's in his homemade suit.
Yeah, so I think that this is going to be, probably the turning point in the movie when he's able to show Tony that you're right, he doesn't need the suit. He is super without the suit. And now, have we talked about what's in the plane? Did you mention that?
We kind of talked that we kind of thought it was some sort of Avengers tech or Avengers weapons, maybe.
Right, because I think in one shot, and I don't know if you mentioned this earlier, but that it includes an Iron Man suit. There's a quick shot of Michael Keaton, the Vulture, walking through some of the cargo on the plane, and you can see clearly there's a silhouette of an Iron Man suit, in the background.
Oh, I must have missed that. Like I saw him. There's a scene where he's holding up like the Iron Man kind of like helmet, but I didn't know if that was like at another point, like if that was maybe like a cast off from another suit from an old fight sometime in the past.
Yeah, no, I in the international trailer, I think it shows that, and just goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that anybody can be a superhero with a suit, right? So they've got a bunch of, I mean, you and I, man, we get out there, finally be our vigilantes like we wanted to do. Yeah,
I mean, we could make it happen, I guess. So this is kind of like what we've kind of seen from the trailer. We do see a little more of the Vulture. We do see that like this big kind of suit that he's wearing isn't like something like that just like attaches to it's not like I don't know how to put this, like wings that just like attached to his back, but it looks just like some sort of whole like full like endoskeleton suit that like he's kind of like straps or kind of clips into, and that it's not just like for flying, but like the wings he uses them to like clip the webbing, and so like I'm imagining he can use those sharp metal wings to like cut and slice, and so I'm imagining he's going to be pretty formidable in the air fighting against Peter.
Well, there's one scene I think when he's going after Spider-Man where he goes into a building of some kind, or a parking garage, and he basically slices through several like thick concrete columns with his wings. So yeah, I would imagine that. He's got some talons. I think that he steps on Peter at some point as well. So no, I definitely seems to be formidable. And I will say, and I said this before, I think when we earlier, months ago, kind of talked about when the first trailer dropped, that Michael Keaton, just as an actor, is such a great actor. And he brings such like a level of depth to any character he plays that I am really looking forward to him as a villain.
I agree with you. I mean, I love almost everything that he's been in. I think he can play wacky and silly, and he can also play brooding and methodical, and he can also play like crazy and maniacal. I mean, he's just he's got a lot of range, that guy. I mean,
you go from Multiplicity to
Batman,
Mr. Mom, to Batman, to
the Vulture.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like overall, Steve, looking at this third trailer and the international trailer, I definitely felt like it's given me more insights as to maybe like what this movie's going to be about. I think there's a whole lot of humor that's going to be in this movie that we've only like scratched the surface in any of the trailers. By far, my funniest line, like I can't stop laughing every single time I see it, even though I've seen this line in every trailer they've shown multiple times, is when Peter Parker and Tony Stark are sitting in the limo, and he's like, well, okay, when can I go on the next adventure? And he's like, yeah, we'll let you know. And then he reaches over, and Peter thinks he's getting a hug, so he gives him a hug, and Tony says, hey, I'm not giving you a hug, I'm just opening up the door. Like every single time, it just makes me laugh. Like it's just very well written, that I can laugh at the same joke over and over and over again. I think there's a lot more humor coming in this thing. I definitely think they're going to have that spin, because Spider-Man is a teenager. I think they're going to have a lot of youth, a lot of humor that's going to be injected, but we're just not seeing it right yet. And I think they're holding that back to be a big surprise, so that we're going to walk away kind of feeling like we did with Ant-Man, that there was a lot of unexpected humor in that, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that, but I think they're also going to use that really lighthearted portion to make a very drastic change midpoint in the movie where, I mean, the Vulture gives this line, and again, Michael Keaton's delivery is so good, but he's basically like, you don't want to mess with me, because I will kill you and everyone that you love. And so, there will definitely be that dark period that is in every movie that he needs to come out of. But I'm looking forward to it as well. I think it's going to be a great movie. It looks well filmed. I mean, they've got a great cast. I think it's going to be, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I can't wait. Let me ask you this. is this for you a date night movie or a take your kids family movie?
It's probably like take my bros movie. Like I don't know if I would take like a date night to it. Like I'd.
And by date night, I mean your wife. I don't mean like a girlfriend. I mean Carrie.
This is the second podcast in a row where you referred to some other. This is all jokes, people. Yeah, but I'd probably take my buddies to it. So we go out and see it and get some chicken wings afterwards.
I know Brita wants to see this. Maybe go get a churro afterwards. Maybe that would be more appropriate.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. Yeah. Yes.
I know Brita wants to go see this, so I know I could probably go see this with Brita. I definitely could go see it like with my brother or some friends, that sort of thing. I definitely think that this, like, how to put this? My boys know that I've got the Spider-Man movies, like the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfields, like on our iTunes, because it's on our Apple TV. And they scroll and go, "Oh, Daddy, Spider-Man, Spider-Man." And I have yet to watch any of those Spider-Man movies because, let's be honest, I mean, they're PG-13 for a reason. There's some stuff that's in them that it's a little adult for a 3 and a 4-year-old. I need to get them on the animated stuff. So I couldn't in good conscience take my boys to go see this yet. But, when they're maybe like, 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range, sure.
Or 13, as the rating says. But yes.
It's the suggested rating, Steve.
They're very conservative, those people that make those ratings.
Right. They're like, they're decapitating people. But they're orcs. They're not real people. PG-13.
That's right, exactly. Oh, very good. Well, so yes, hits July 7th, I believe. So
7/7/17.
Ooh, well done.
So let me ask you this, Steve, because I got to go back to this because this is for me is always a Spider-Man thing, and I think people are in two camps. Spider-Man with his web shooters, original comes from him, or the tech and the web shooters that he makes. Which side of this do you fall on?
I would say comes from him. He was bit by the spider for a reason. And I think that that's included in the package. He climbs walls, he has spidey sense, and he shoots webs from his veins.
I'm with you. I like the shooting the spider webs from his wrists, and I think it has to be that way. But I understand that a lot of people go different ways. So let's ask this question to our super friends this week. Spider-Man. Does the webs have to come from him, or are you okay with them coming from his web shooters that he builds, from the tech? Let us know at Fort of Nerd on Twitter, fortofnerd@gmail.com, or facebook.com/Fort of Nerd.
Very good.
Steve, I always wanted to say this, and I don't get to say it a lot. But when it comes,
this is gonna get weird.
No, not at all. But
okay.
But it's a little Uncle Ben for you. When it comes to Spider-Man, you got to remember, like, he's just a boy, right? But with great power comes great responsibility, and that boy just wants to do what's right for his city, and I love that.
I think we could end on that.
I'm just saying, I love Spider-Man. Man, like, if I'm completely honest, like in the Marvel comic books, Spider-Man's my favorite character. Always has been.
Really?
Yep, in the Marvel world, closely followed by Incredible Hulk. But I love Spider-Man because it was always different, right? Spider-Man is a teenager versus all the adults that were superheroes. Right. And it was written, and it was like a boy, and he was still having to deal with, high school problems and girl problems, and trying to, convince Aunt May and Uncle Ben that nothing was going wrong, and
he's into drugs. I know
right. Why is he always gone?
Well, I love in this trailer as well when he's like, "What? You can't go." His friend Ned, he's like, "You can't go. We have a Spanish test."
Right.
So that is a really cool element to it that you don't get with other superheroes. He's dealing with delivering pizzas and whatnot, and trying to get keep his job at the at the paper, at the Bugle or whatever, and
Yep.
It is.
Did you also notice we haven't seen Aunt May really in any of these trailers?
We have one scene.
I think maybe the very first trailer, but definitely not this last one.
That's Marissa Tomei, isn't it?
Ooh, yes, it is.
Yeah. Aunt May, Aunt May.
Maybe a reason not to take a date to go see this.
Uncle Ben done kicked a bucket. It's called opportunity.
All right, well, on that weird note, let's get out of here before we get ourselves into trouble with our missus.
Amen to that.
Well, thank you for joining us once again, episode number 27. So glad to have all of our super friends with us this week. We look forward to talking to you guys next week.
May the force be with you. Always.
Welcome, everybody, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast. It's a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Kermit the Frog, and my co-pilot, as always, is Fozzie Bear. We're two best friends that, despite being Muppets, we just kind of refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us on the Fortress of Nerditude. This is episode number 27. We release it every Thursday morning on iTunes, Google, and now on Stitcher. How are you, Fozzie?
I was like, he's going through the whole show like this. Nice. Very nice. My P2000 space modulator.